mining business, persistence is not just a virtue, it's a strategy for success. Today's guest is a managing director of an exploration drilling company who has navigated through challenging times and weathered the storm.
Lindiwe Nakedi is the managing director of Gubhani Exploration, a surface drilling company that's making significant strides in the mining and geological survey industries. Her business journey brings a powerful narrative of survival and strategic navigation through the toughest of business dry seasons. From moments of personal struggle to leading a successful exploration drilling enterprise, Lindiwe embodies the true spirit of entrepreneurial grit. Today, she shares intimate insights into overcoming business challenges and transforming adversity into opportunity.
Lindiwe, welcome and thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Tori, for inviting me.
So who is Lindiwe outside of her accolades, her titles, and everything she gets to do? Just take us through your personal journey and your journey into mining eventually.
Sure. Firstly, and most importantly, Lindiwe is a child of God.
Absolutely.
A worshipper.
Yeah.
I believe I was made to worship Him. And therefore, my life must be a whole picture of reverence and respect for the fact that God put me on this earth for a purpose. And I'd like to fulfill it, you know. And that's who I am. But also, I guess most importantly, I'm a wife to one husband.
Yeah.
Now for 19 years.
Wow.
And a mother of 3. And just a sister, a daughter, an aunt. Like I'm so proud to be a present aunt. That's very important to me. And just a lover of the life that God has given me.
Yeah. You started a drilling company, exploration drilling, to say. Just talk to us about the journey into starting that business. Where did the idea even come from?
Okay, perfect. So basically, just to give you further background as to where everything just sort of came from. I went to varsity and I did industrial psychology, but then I actually didn't take it further than, the first year. And I decided to go into business. So growing up, I was always very much interested in starting something. I did not want to be a 9-to-5, type of job, locked up behind a desk, etc. So, just an example of my entrepreneurial drive, I think at the age of 8-9 in my neighborhood, Kotikloof, I started a Saturday school.
Okay.
And ke ne ke patedisa bana di 2 ranta. Ba tla reetsa English, maths, and no, we didn't do Afrikaans because Linda Nexaids. Mara English and maths, that's what we did. And I'd ask for the 2 ranta, write newsletters to the parents and say, can you please give your child money because we need to go buy stationery for them. And that's pretty much, where I think that, sparked. And so going, a little bit fast forward, after my first degree, I decided to go to Wits Business School, and there was a program where they could let me in without work experience, etc. And it was the new managers program. And I think that's where I kind of realized that, okay, these are the things that you need actually when you are running a business or when you have to manage, an entity. It's got to have these different aspects. And I think that, was a great thing for me. But I met my first manager actually when that one job that I actually did get was through a person I met at business school. And she was like, don't you want to come and do recruitment? I mean, you did, industrial psychology, so you've got the basics. And I said, okay, no problem. I'll come and do recruitment, because she was telling me you get really great commission, etc. So I went and I did recruitment, but like for 9 months, I was like, you know what, I'm done. But I know I'm a really committed worker, because I'd get to work at like 7 a.m. and leave 6 p.m. I'm just one of those people, very conscientious when it comes to, if I have to do something, I'm going to give it my all. Do it well. If you're an entrepreneur, but you're working for somebody, don't have that fly in the air type of attitude. Still get down to business. Do what you're there for. So that's the kind of person I pretty much am. And so when I then finished, like left that employment, I was just sort of like, what do I actually want to do, you know? But during that time, we were planning our wedding with my husband. And so I just thought, let me get into this wife, you know, role, kind of find my feet. And a few months in, because I think I left my job in 2003 about. And then 2005, I started working with that same manager that offered me a job and started a company called People Shop, which was our recruitment firm. And we were specializing in recruiting supply chain management professionals. And we would headhunt, we would, you know, so it was a niche market. We knew exactly what we are looking for in terms of the profiles. And that's pretty much what I did after I got married. I started a business. My husband also, same time, left his place of employment. And he's then started, you know, trying to get into drilling. But it didn't work out because he was trying to buy a drilling company, but the financials of that company were just not. So I was sort of in the know of this mining industry, you know, this drilling business. I was getting an idea of what's happening there. I mean, he's once said, come visit one of our drilling sites at work. And I'd go and visit a site, you know, out in the Secunda area. And it was just fascinating that they're out in the open. Oh, this is what I love. I don't need to be in an office. So once the recruitment business, you know, made a decision, you know, that I didn't want to be in that business any longer, then my husband was like, roped me in and he was like, help me. I'm a geologist. I'm very technical. You know, my focus is on the work that we have to, you know, do, the projects, but not necessarily in the business, you know, marketing the business, getting the business out there. And that was pretty much what became my role. And then we created Gubhani Exploration. And Gubhani Exploration was because we felt there were no players at the time, you know, who were Black owned, but let alone female owned. And we thought this is the perfect time to take advantage. Black economic empowerment, you know, was like the buzzword, and the companies needed to comply. And we're like, let's help them to comply. Let's be the solution in the market. And that's what I believe, that every business that you bring to any market, it's not usually about the money, or it shouldn't be about the money, but rather the solution. What solution are you bringing? And because of the insight that my husband had on drilling companies, he also then added a few things to say, look, we need to ensure that we're not about the meters, you know, because obviously the more meters you drill, the more money you make. But let's give the companies the quality that I know I needed as a geologist on the other end. Let's give them that ear, you know, that they need, you know, you to have as a contractor, as a driller. And that was the whole idea. But another bigger aspect was just, he would see the working conditions of the guys. He would see their living conditions even, and how they were treated. And, you know, we thought, let's bring the human element, you know, into the space, and, you know, treat the people differently. Show them that their expertise is actually, you know, needed, you know, and they're playing a huge role. Show them, Hori, you are right at the beginning of the start of this mammoth of an industry, you know, so show them the big picture. And that was pretty much where we felt Gubhani would fit. You know, being a solution, being hopefully an innovator, and also being an answer, you know, even to the people that work with us.
As a person now being the managing director of the company, I mean, drilling, exploration even is quite a technical space. And I mean, your background is not geology, it's not mining, it's not engineering, it's not science.
Not science.
You know, so how do you manage, or how do you navigate that space, especially with your colleagues or even your clients who expect somebody who, you know, your profile expectation is a geologist for these many years, and yours is industrial psychologist. How did you navigate the challenges that come with you not being, you know, technically
inclined.
How did you also bring yourself up to speed?
So like I said, with my husband being a geologist, and he's almost like a teacher.
Yeah.
The kids always say, "Oh, Daddy's lectures."
Yes.
I think I used him a lot, to say, okay, what is this? What is this? But also site visits. And like I say, when we were working with our drillers, a lot of the expertise comes from the drillers themselves.
Yeah.
And a lot of the learning comes from those people, as muddy as they may be, as dirty as their PPE might be. But they are the people that we respect so much, and I mean, I think I also learned that from my husband, that for him to learn drilling, because he's a geologist, not a driller. And it's very, very technical, very different in nature. And so he also taught himself by learning from the drillers themselves. And I think that was so important, because it also showed our guys that you have a role to play in terms of the teaching and, passing down your expertise to the next person that who also has to become a driller. And that kind of also gives them a certain kind of confidence, and my bosses, they trust me. So we love having that type of, relationship. And so for me, the learning came from going to site. When we're buying the equipment, when we're buying the consumables, I'm there. Because I want to see. I want to know, when you're talking about an overshot, what are you talking about? The stop ring. What? Oh, you want to order stop ring? What are those? I can't be one of those managers. It's like, order the stop rings. Order and I'm like, what is that? What does a drill bit even look like? And so it was just very fascinating for me to immerse myself into this thing that I was just never exposed to. The equipment, the heavy engineering type environment, it was fascinating to me. And so I was willing to learn it. I was willing to ask the questions. I was willing to look the fool, like, how we yazi,
It happens,
And it's okay.
And it only happens once.
And it only happens once. And a lot of the times, that's what helps you to learn. If you don't ask the question, you don't learn. And so for me, it took a lot of time. It was nerve-wracking. Going into those technical meetings, I knew I wanted to be in there so that I can hear, the jargon must make sense, how many meters have you gone down? Oh, okay. And then have you reached basement? Now I'm starting to go and learn about the geology as well. But then you go through, now there's overburden here. And once you've gone through the overburden, you're going to, oh my goodness, there's gas pockets, so because we did a lot of drilling within the coal side as well. So there was a lot of learning, geology stuff and the drilling stuff. And so I've enjoyed that. It was challenging. It still is, because you don't know everything, and there's new technologies that are entering the market, and you want to be able to speak like somebody who actually knows what they're saying. And it's sometimes intimidating, but you've got to put yourself in there so that you can be able to at least come out with, no, I don't have the certificate, but I know what you mean.
I know what happens next.
No, don't put us by those holes, because we know what's going to happen there. We're not going to drill, Don't call us at this time of the year, because we're not going to drill. It's going to be rainy seasons. It's going to be muddy. The farms are not going to, So it's just been immersing myself into the space, be in it, ask the questions, be okay about asking the question. Doesn't matter if you are the MD.
Sure. So, Lindy, like any other entrepreneur, business can be very tough. Maybe take us through the journey of when you started and the period where the business was just not doing well.
You start with that brilliant idea. You come up with, this is the difference. This is my USP. This is my, this is what's going to set me apart from the rest of the market. And then you have to go and knock on the door. And a person looks at you and they're like, hey, do you guys even know how to drill? Do you know what a drill rig looks like? And so I think aspects of how do you gain the trust
Yeah.
of this client? How do you make them see that they need what you say you're offering?
Sure.
And so having to now, funny enough, we did a lot of the work saying, okay, go and knock where word of mouth can be able to be our thing. Yeah. Let's go talk to some of the guys that you once went to school with, you know, and say, give us an opportunity, you know. And so when that first opportunity actually came along, it was because of, I know you from back there at Sasol, and you say you have a drilling company. Okay, let's give it a shot.
Sure.
But the nice thing as well is that big project that we started with, it was because they were Australian guys coming into the country, and the client that, or the contractor that they had, didn't have the equipment that they needed.
Sure.
Because we were supposed to drill the big size core, T6146. I don't remember in millimeters what that is, but it was a very big sample, you know, core. And they said, if you can get this equipment in quickly enough, we will give you the opportunity.
Sure.
So we had a rig that we were hiring. In fact, with that first company that my husband tried to do, they were going through a liquidation.
Yeah.
They were sponsored by a certain mining house to start the business, and for some reason it just did not go the way it was supposed to go. So they started liquidating his first company. And we decided, no, let's use that rig that, you know, is going through liquidation. Because I care it's still in our hands.
Yes.
We flew in that size equipment.
Sure.
Instead of waiting for the shipping and whatever, like we went all in. We're like, we're gonna ship in that equipment, and lo and behold, 3 weeks down, it's in there, and they're like, go and run with it. We started drilling with just one machine. That T6146, it made us money. You know, it was that time where I remember the song because I remember how much we were bawling that December. So excited. We got that project. We were drilling. We got paid our first invoice. You could have whatever you like.
Yes.
And that was brilliant, right? But then the machine had to go. The Australian company had a water use license issue with DMRE. So that first project literally came tumbling down. They were supposed to come back in a few weeks' time once we've sorted out the water use license. It ended up becoming years. And that's where being a business person started being, okay, what do we do now? We were trying to get finance from a bank to see if we can buy a drill rig, and lo and behold, we found a rig. We got the finance, and then the project stopped. Now we can't pay this rig that we are trying to acquire at the bank. And we said to them, we can pay this in 6 months. We were willing to do that, you know, pay them a really high, you know, premium. And unfortunately, the project just didn't work out. So now we're going back to the bank, making arrangements. Please let us pay it over a year, you know, because right now we're waiting for work. We are waiting for something to come up for us to be able to do this. The manufacturer of the rig says to us, let me store this rig for you. And we're like, oh, thank you so much. Because at that time we didn't have a yard or anything. He vanished.
With the rig?
With the rig. So now we are definitely stuck. The bank is making us pay for a rig that we can't even find. And we have to now inform them, we can't find this rig. The supplier did 1, 2, 3 of that, and then they had to try and, you know, recover it. And it was a long process. It was a very long process because the police got involved, and they saying, no, you gave it to him to store it for you. So it's a civil case and not a criminal case. But the man vanished anyway. So basically, during that time, you kind of learn also that how do I then diversify the skills that we've got? So we decided, okay, let's make it a consulting company. Let's make it a geological consulting company. Husband please go and do some geology work for any company that comes along and says, we don't have a geologist, we need somebody who can help us with these applications or whatever, so that we can at least get some money in. But then it was taking a while.
How many years would you give it where you were just trying to make the business work and it
wasn't working?
Yeah.
I think it was about 7 or 8 years.
Sure, yeah.
It was about 7 or 8 years because I remember during those that time after that, water use license issue, and now suddenly we don't have a project, we don't have income. Our house was being taken back by the bank.
Yeah.
And so we were literally just, it felt like we were dying.
Yeah.
Yeah, it felt like everything was falling apart.
Yeah.
And the one thing that I had, which I loved because it was like my detox, de-stress, everything was dance.
Ew.
So I used to go to ballet, with my daughter's ballet teacher. And then she was like, oh, are you interested in maybe teaching kids? And I was like, yeah, I need to make money somehow.
Yeah.
So I started going to different nursery schools to teach ballet.
Sure.
And I ended up having about 3 or 4 nursery schools that I was teaching.
Yeah.
2 in the Soweto area and 2 here nearby where I live in the East Rand. And that's how we were making some money.
Yeah.
And my husband, when we couldn't get the geology consulting work, because you're competing with Boma, SRK, and the bigger consulting companies, then he decided, let me see what opportunities are out there. And there was data dotting that was happening. And he decided, let me go buy myself a compressor. I'll data dot cars.
Sure.
So there was a guy who owned he was a mechanic. And cars would usually come there for repairs. And the people would say, Aish, I need to go and get the car, dotted. And he'd say, I know a guy. And my husband would go in his overalls and go and dot the cars. And I'd laugh at him because he'd come back dirty.
Yes.
Because but that was just that part of hanging there.
Yeah, and I want you to just expand and speak more of some of the things that are necessary to do to keep things going, because 7 years is sounds quick when we're having this conversation, but in real time you've got bills to pay, you've got children to look after, you've got just necessities of life to take care of. What other things had you had to pull, strings to pull, just to ensure that you continue with life while you're trying to, get your business back on its feet?
Look, obviously the big thing that happens there is that you have a huge adjustment to life, right? Like I mentioned that our house had to go. So we ended up living with family, our sister, and her husband, our brother. We went to go and live with them. And their house was also an unfinished house, but they were like, you can use one of the rooms, and we've got these 2 little kids. And so at some point, my husband was like, oh yeah, this car is also going to have to go.
Sure.
So now we are using his father's car, just to get around and stuff. But I think for us, what was important was to say, he said this. He said, okay, Lindy, what we call this season right now is destroy and rebuild.
Sure.
Now, the mindset had to be that we are destroying or we are power. So that we can be able to now go back and start building. So even if it looks like we've completely retreated, but we are actually just working forward. We never stopped marketing the business. That was very important.
Jeez.
And it doesn't matter what we look like, how dry-lipped we looked. We still had to go and market that business. We still had to do the knocking on the door. And being relentless, and that was one of the things that was so important. But while we are being relentless and not getting the work that we want, we had to come up with alternatives.
Sure.
And I always refer to, this verse where God says to Moses, what do you have in your hand? And for me, what I had in my hand was that very skill that I had, which was ballet. And I didn't mind, doing it. I'd be putting my radio, love, I'm going to see you later, Kiako, junior academy, that's where I was teaching. Ke ya ko Sanwat Park, ke ya ko Zakaria Park, ke ya ko Protea Glen.
Sure.
Ke kentse radio in a bag. I've taken teddy bears because there are certain exercises that you do with teddy bears, and I'd have like 12 children that I'm teaching, you know, but it was so reviving for me as well because it felt like I'm doing something about this. Yeah. I'm not just sitting, you know, twiddling my thumbs saying, Mara, the contract, they are not coming. It's like, no, I still need to feed the family, you know. At some point at their house, Nebanalia Salon at the back, and I'd go there some days, sweep the hair off the floor. At some point they were like, oh, come, wash the hair. Chemical relax. And I'd be washing hair. And it would be amazing, you know. Never mind the fact that you have a degree, you have a business that's registered. But for me, it was about I'm working towards something. And slowly catching my monkey.
And I wanted to get to that because I've heard you use the words where you say slowly catching my monkey. Those are the words you describe your journey. Just explain what that means.
Sure. Funny, that statement, I heard it in high school. I went to a girls' school, and our geography teacher used to say to us, slowly catching monkey. And I never forget that. So that for me is, it doesn't matter how slow it is and it looks, this process, but you're gonna catch the monkey at some point. You are going to get that prize at some point, even if it happens slowly. For me, instant success is not a thing. Like I don't even I I don't know that thing. Overnight success, and I don't care to know it. Why? Because I felt that in that slow process, in that slow journey, there are certain characteristics that you learn. There are character traits that you learn and they become cemented. You know, having patience, having grit, not being easily broken in spirit. You know, regardless of what anybody says. It's very hard for you to be broken when you've been through the kind of process we've been through. So you know.
Let's look at what this did to you emotionally. I can imagine. I mean, you lose a house, you lose a car. Your children, I mean, we all want a comfortable life for our children. There's a certain life we want them to live, and you can't give it to them at that time. What did that do to you emotionally, and how did you navigate that part where you're sitting alone, reflecting, and it's not eating up?
You know what? That was actually very painful. And half the time, I try to remember what it actually felt like. And it's hard for me to actually remember what it felt like. I'll tell you why. I think, you know, when God is part of your journey, your life's journey, and you're constantly putting yourself in the position of prayer, and you're saying, okay, Lord, this doesn't make sense to me. How do I do this? How do I navigate through this? And then he keeps on saying, all things work together for good. All things work together for good. I think that verse was like my
anchor.
Wabona, without that verse, because I know that God is good. I know that he wants the best for his children. I know that his future or my future has a hope and it's a bright future. So there's no way that I can't believe that where I am is where I'm going to end up. And so I think for me, that constant going back to God, that constant, find myself in church, worship. Worship was like a huge weapon for me to counter the feelings of inadequacy, to counter the feelings of doubt, to counter even those feelings of shame. You know, because it's like, at some point we were bawling. You remember that you can have whatever you like moment, and it's like, hey, now I can't even, you know, and when the kids have to go to school, now, hey, Renita, this, you know, your child needs to buy this, there's this book, there's that, and you're constantly waiting on something, you know, constantly, and your mom is like, okay, rumela this, and, you know, it does become difficult. And I think it did also hit my husband very hard. Because now we are living under another man's roof.
Yeah.
So having to be a wife during that time was very difficult.
Sure.
Because I also think about him.
Yeah.
I know that the nature of a man is to provide and to protect and to ensure that everything that you need, you have. So now you have to be this gentle soul that absorbs a lot of things so that you don't make this person feel like, yeah, very villain, nah. I mean, I've heard somebody say, like, okay, what does that mean? When you can see that we are a partnership.
Yeah.
And so if we are down here, really too remote, it means we both have to find a way to get back up, right?
Yeah.
It's not just his responsibility. So a lot of that stuff, I felt, no, we're partners, dude.
Yeah.
And if there's any way we're going to get out of this, it's us together. And I think that's why I appreciate the journey of being able to work with him, because when we are down together, and when we are up together.
Did you have moments where you reflected on that part of your journey? Think of it, the 3rd year or the 4th year, you know, and you just cried?
Yes.
Sure.
There'd be times where I just want to put myself in a space.
Yeah.
Without anybody seeing me, and just shed those tears because it was painful. It felt like it felt like you are no longer anything of importance to anyone, because you can't come to the table and say, go family. You know, you can't come and say, you know, you feel like a nobody. And so there were times where I just literally cried.
Sure.
And you know, there's a song that I used to love playing very high, so that nobody can hear what's happening behind the crying. I mean the music. And it's Turning Around for Me by Vashon Mitchell.
Ooh.
I used to sing that song.
It's turning around.
Tears running down my face. I'm professing what I want to see happen. That turnaround. It's not there yet.
Sure.
It's not there yet. But I'm singing and saying it won't always be like this, but it's turning around for me. And I had to hold, I think, both me and my husband in prayer, because he probably didn't have the strength for it.
Sure. What did your support network do for you? How did family and friends anchor you and walk you through that part of a journey, which you didn't know when is the end date?
When is the end date?
Yeah.
I think, what they did was huge. But you know, with our family, the unique thing is that we all went through that season at the same time. It's like nowhere to run.
Yes.
But, you know, there'd be pockets of sunshine. You know, there'd be pockets of my mom saying, hey, at some point, we were selling stuff. You know, we were selling keyboards, because I mean, we wanted our kids to play the piano and because they're artists, and we could tell they're artistic, but we were selling the things that they needed, because we needed the money, you know, to buy stuff. But our support system was constant reminders, especially with our mothers. You know, me and my mom in love are like, we are mother and daughter. Like mother and daughter. I can sit with her and I can cry, and we can, you know, and she will just say, Danam guzolonga. That's all she'd say. Guzolonga.
Yeah, they'll get better.
When I talk to my mom, it's all things work together for good.
My girl.
You know, and I love, you know, I think the encouragement was also, I love how you guys are holding on to each other. I love how you are working, you know, with each other through this season. So it was family. That was our biggest support system. But also I remember my friends, these two, Steli Ayanda, they came to fetch me. They're like, no, Lindy, we're coming to pick you up. And they were taking me to a movie. I cried in that movie. They didn't see me, but as I'm sitting there eating that popcorn, I just broke down. I'm like, this is the The rest I needed. Just that moment of, we care, we know what you're going through, we know we can't help you with a lot, but this is it. And it just felt like a peace. So just people extending themselves. Mewa, my husband Kaluso, would give us the 50 rand. Every time I give it the 50, the 100 rand. We knew how to use that money.
You will know.
Born. I know how to extend 100 rands. I can extend it. My daughter's clothes. My husband doesn't like body stone wash and clothes that look like they are fading or whatever, because I would literally have to. I'll sew a cute heart on my daughter's tights. But I mean, for me, it was like, oh wow, I'm learning to be creative. I think I never had that thing of self-pity. I just did not feel there was a reason for that, because I felt, but I'm moving out of this season. It's a season. Seasons have an end. Seasons have a beginning. Seasons have an end. So this season, it'll fade. But my husband is also a computer lover. And from nowhere, we got a request, because he had registered a company by putting technologies. And he was like, got an order. We need computers. Do you think you can help us with fulfilling that order, Yadi laptop? No problem. It was like, a windfall. I think God always knew when to set off, things that will be just enough. Here you go. Just enough, and be okay with that just enough. Be content with that just enough. We are still marketing the business.
Absolutely.
We are still putting ourselves out there, because we need to. And that waiting period was it was good for us. Because for our marriage, it was so good. We became a partnership.
For real.
A proper partnership.
Lindy, when business gets tough,
it's
easy to take shortcuts.
For sure.
It's easy to make unethical decisions. It's easy to overlook due diligence.
Yes.
How did you maintain your values and principles during that time where you genuinely needed the money?
That was hard.
That
was hard. Especially because you need the money. But remember, I was telling you, Khorem, being a child of God, there's certain principles that you live by, right? And you hold yourself to those very, my husband, some of his friends would even call him Muruti, right? So imagine now, these are the same people you went to varsity with who are now in the industry. And then you want a shortcut there, integrity out the window. And it does become hard, and I think I'm very sympathetic, to a lot of people who will say, hey, but I had to make decisions that were very hard, in this process. And I understand. But for us, we couldn't. And I think that's why it took us so long to get to the point where we've even got our own drill rigs that we are buying, but that we can only buy with money that we've saved, and over time, nogal. So the standard of living under the umbrella of being a child of God, but also living as a kingdom, minded person who says, I want to be able to go back and build the kingdom with this money. Is it the kind of money I'd want to bring to the Lord? Because He sees everything, right? I can hide it from you, Tofi, but I can't hide it from God. And so for us, it's always been God is the center, and what would we be able to answer to Him?
Maybe talk to us about the deals and other things you had to say no to, however tough it was, but you thought at the time no was the right answer.
Look, we've never had a situation really where we've had to say no, because drilling jobs, are never forthcoming. It's a different space. It's a different space where nobody's really bringing you a job. But I know actually recently there was a company that we were dealing with, and they're like a junior miner. And I'm not sure if one of the people is coming from a place where he's got certain connections, but we had just given them an RFQ, creating a relationship sort of, and starting to have a bit of a rapport. And we were supposed to start a project with them. And then from nowhere, the gentleman from the client comes and says, hey guys, I've got this amount of money that I just need it to be paid into an account so that I can, be able to access it. And unfortunately, I can't use my this. Can you guys do this for me? You will get your percentage. I was like, hey, sorry, you know what? Our accountant is so strict. He wants things to be done his way. Because, sometimes you're trying to build this relationship. So you want to still be able to keep this person because hopefully there's still some drilling work for us. So you want to, you don't want to be that person who's like, when So you kind of try to find a way. And, that I just said, no, sorry, you know what? Our accountant is going to need us to give him this invoice and that invoice. So unfortunately, no, we won't be able to do it like that. It becomes very difficult. I must say, it becomes very difficult. But I think for us, some of the things that we've had to walk away from, unfortunately, were drilling projects that we saw we were not going to be making anything from it, if anything. Some of the projects that we wished we could have worked on, unfortunately, is because we just didn't agree with the client. And the client wanted to have things their way, and we felt, but we can't do it that way. We'd rather do it in this way. And so we've had to walk away, knowing fully well that, here's the, this, financial institution that's willing to give us the money to fulfill the project. But if it's not going to let us to be able to now fulfill our end of the bargain to the financial institution and put us in a worse off position, we'd rather not take it, So those are some of the, where you literally have to be counting, the beans and saying, no, but then this doesn't add up. These are those are most of the times where our, if it doesn't add up for us, then we can't do it. If it doesn't make sense where this is coming from, then we can't do it. If this is not your name on the prospecting right, and there's no way for us to also prove we can't do it. So we always have, does it have a beginning? Does it have an end? Okay, then does it make sense? If it doesn't make sense, we're not going to step into that area.
Look, opportunities eventually opened up.
For sure.
How did that come about, and how do you even sustain it?
Sustaining. Like, this is why now we've started Women in Mining Business, because building sustainable women-led businesses. Sustainability is very hard. And I think also when you are an entrepreneur, you don't always have all the skills, because now you've started something, you've created something, but nobody has taught you how to build a legacy business. There's nobody who's there to give you the guidance on how to even scale this thing up. And there's nobody who's there who's walking with you, holding your hand and telling you, now do this, jigaka kona no. This is so it's very difficult in terms of sustainability. But I think we've been relying on, kind of intel from prayer, to say, okay, what should be the next step? What should be the next direction for us? We know we don't want to be contractors anymore because we are fatigued. And survival mode fatigue is the pits, because you're constantly making sure that you are surviving instead of sustaining. It's more survival. And that's very difficult. Trying to take on whatever project you can get, and then sometimes the client just doesn't pay you, because a lot of the times we do the work, and once the client has the core that they're looking for, they're happy and they can sit there and not pay your invoice. So we've found that, okay, maybe contracting is not going to be a sustainable thing over time. We need to actually start looking at our own possible assets. We develop our own work, if anything. And so that's what we have sort of stepped into when it talks to sustainability and growth, for us personally.
when things opened up,
yes.
How did that come about, and how was that for you?
Yeah. So, I mean, we continue to market ourselves, but again, it's so important, especially in this mining industry. I wish, people could understand this, that we grow relationships, with people. We've known people from varsity. A lot of the people who are in certain managerial positions now, who are in the position to give us opportunities, we've known them, and they know us, and so it's highly likely that somebody will be like, hey, dude, I remember you've got a drilling company. Please, can you give us an RFQ? Nobody's jumping you the queue or anything like that, but you're going to have to put in that RFQ that still has to go to procurement. So the process is transparent. You understand? So we then had an opportunity with one of my husband's friends who is now passed on, may his soul rest in peace. And he was like, no, guys, come and drill for me. I've got a project here out in Machado Dorp, and I think you guys can do it for me. And we were like, right now we don't have rigs, but let's see who we can subcontract, who can do that project for us. Then we found somebody who could subcontract. He went in, started drilling. While we are drilling, we are saving the money. And an opportunity came up where an old guy, in the drilling space, apparently he, was killed. And his business now, he left it to his sons, but his sons didn't want to drill. And so they put up all his equipment onto the market. And we're like, can we please buy it? And, negotiating, even though I don't go and do the negotiation, I send my husband, I'm like, tell them we'll give them 500,000 for this, that, and that. And because the guys didn't really care, they're like, okay, no problem. And it was like, okay. So we got this, I think it was one rig. And we got it and we put it out on the project, and we asked the subcontractor if he can finish at the end of that month, because now we're putting in our own rig. And we started drilling. Now that, it changes the game.
Everything,
because it's a fully paid up rig. We are drilling it ourselves. We are making the money that needs to be made. And during that whole process, we are now continuing to market. And sometimes it's like, when they say, mosebetsi o mong o tlhagella ha o le ko o mong. It's like when it's dry, it's dry. But then the minute you start working somewhere, you're going to find something else. So after that project in Machado Dorp, another opportunity then opened up for us. But this was actually a nice one, because this organization was saying, look, we need a Black-owned company that can grow with us, and we were like, we are ready.
We are here.
They're like, and you don't mind us calling you a previously disadvantaged? We're like, we don't mind. We are previously disadvantaged. Sorry. And, they were like, hey, Pella, you don't know, some of these companies, when we approach them, they don't take, very kindly to that. And we're like, no, we are willing, and so we went, and they developed us as a small company. And during that process, we then brought in that old rig. But then they felt that, no, can you guys fix this rig, so that it's according to our safety specs, etc. And so we had to do a lot of work on it. But the nice thing is that project, Yako Machado Dorp, we had money that we could put into now making ourselves ready for this now project that we were going into.
Lindy, there's power in consistency. There is some people who are low financially, or education-wise, or whatever lack they've got. But you can see the effort they put in whatever little thing they've got to do. Tells you that if an opportunity opens up, this person is gone.
Is ready.
How important was it for you in whatever you had to do, whether it's ballet or whatever work your husband had to do it so well and build your brain and be so consistent in the quality of work you deliver, even now to the companies that you work for?
Look, it is extremely important. And I think we never take for granted any project that we're doing. Whether it was for a small consulting house that said, look, we've got this company that needs somebody to come and drill. If we say we are going to give you this type of quality core, you're gonna get it. If we say we're not going to crush your core, you're going to have your core recovery. I mean, we say close to 100%, not completely 100%, but we will give you your core. And when we say we're going to do it safely, Because for us, that is important.
Yeah.
The safety of our people on site.
Yes.
You know, we had to fight with a client at some point. We're like, no. You're not letting us do this in a safe manner.
Yeah.
And we want these people to be able to go back to their families.
Sure.
So we're not going to do that,
Yeah.
you know. So we are able to have that.
Yeah.
That consistency is key.
Sure.
You need to give the clients what they need.
Yeah.
When they come on site, they need to have an ear.
Ooh.
They need to know that, no, they heard me. Yeah. I told them that I didn't like 1, 2, 3 that they did. And so here they are. They've demarcated the area the way I wanted them to. They've, you know, our sites are beautiful to see. You can literally go and sit there and have lunch by those sites because that's what we want to present. And I think we hold ourselves to an even higher standard than anybody else because obviously we've got more scrutiny on us. And usually that's just the way it is. But also another reason why I think the service that we've wanted to give, we've wanted it to be consistent everywhere is because we know this industry is small. We know that wherever we've passed, somebody else can be able to say, I dealt with those people.
Please don't do that to yourself.
You know what I mean? And a lot of the times people don't do that. They don't think about the reputation they are creating. Even with our suppliers, there isn't a supplier, and I will say it confidently, that I have given the runaround with a payment. If my commitment with you was 30 days, I'm going to make it 30 days. My employees, I've never been late with a salary payment. Doesn't matter whether the client hasn't paid me or not. Because sometimes they'll say, no, this invoice was 30 days. And we're like, oh, guys, but then we thought special, you know, payment terms because we're a woman-owned company, etc. And I think that's something that most companies need to consider. This thing of paying small companies 90 days does not work.
Lindy, and I told you this before, you look so young. You look like an overnight success. And the reality is overnight for you is 7 years. And for someone else, that overnight is 5 years. Somebody is 12 years or 15 years. What would you say to somebody who is in that waiting period and it does not look hopeful, but somehow they want to make their business work, but I mean, life is just not turning out the way they want it to be.
Look, I mean, you have to have hope. And I think sometimes what gave us hope was the little things that we were willing to do right in between to give us just that bit of a boost, you know. And so don't sit and wait for that big thing. Do the small things. You know how people say you must celebrate the little things. I think do the small things that come across your path. Sometimes it's just, what do you have in your hand? You know, I would always say, do you know how to plait? You know, because so many people just need somebody who can just plait them. And they pay you. It's a lot of money. You know, so use those skills that come very easily to you. Don't take them for granted. You know, if you're really good at organizing stuff, you know, I was giving somebody advice last time, and I'm like, if you're good at organizing people's things, doing admin or whatever, tell them you'll be their virtual assistant. You know, there are so many things now that can be done, especially with technology. You are not short of opportunity to make money, to sustain yourself while you're waiting for that big thing. So it's important to also have that. But then sometimes maybe you are being redirected. Sometimes maybe that's not it. That's not quite it. You thought it was it, but it's not. So be willing to see where the redirection is taking you to. You know, and expose yourself. I think for me, getting out of my little cocoon, because also, you know, you become scared when you're going through the type of stuff I was going through. You become scared to come around people because they're going to ask you, so what you doing? It's like, I'm doing nothing. Now, I'm teaching children how to dance right now. Oh, Khujaiva. Not Khujaiva. Ballet is different.
It sounds classy, eh?
Like, you know, rather say ballet than Rutabada Jaiva. Well, in essence, it's the same thing, but it's not. But take the time to be okay with a redirection.
Yeah.
If it's necessary.
Sure.
See other things, see other people,
absolutely.
expose yourself.
Yeah.
I think the more when I went into Women in Mining South Africa, it was because I needed to be exposed to something else.
Yeah.
I'd already been stuck in that hole of mine where, we don't have work, this is, not working. And suddenly when I go and meet these other women, there's conversations I'm having that I never thought I'd be having. There's, thoughts that I'm starting to have because somebody planted a certain seed with something that they said. So exposing yourself to other people is important so that you can hear what's happening, what's buzzing, it will spark something in you. For me, WIMSA sparked an opportunity that was even greater than what I expected. I went in there thinking I'll just go and mentor, be a mentor to young people and say, hey, hold on, you're studying this, okay, good, you're going this direction. Kante, it's going to take me to, we need the next chairperson. Can you please step into that role? As somebody who's in drilling or whatever. And I was like, okay. When I went into that, suddenly I have to go and speak in front of people. I never used to speak in front of anybody. Now I have to go and learn how to speak publicly, how to command an audience, how to answer questions that come at you, on the fly. And I learned a lot there. And I met so many people.
Absolutely. And I want you to touch a bit on that part. And I mean, you sat in that chairperson role 2017, 2018.
2018, yeah.
How important was it, besides you gaining something, but to extend yourself to other women, to coach and tell your story and tell somebody it's going to be okay?
Yeah. Funny enough, when I think I learned this some years in, within that 7 years, when you are going through something and you move your eyes from that thing and you focus on helping somebody else, that thing starts becoming small. So, while during that 7 years, I got the opportunity to work with a lady by the name of Lindiwe. She had written her cookbook. She was Nelson Mandela's cook and stuff. And we wanted to help her to expand her brand and to go, further beyond South Africa, etc. And I had to learn completely new skills. But focusing on her, I forgot what I was going through. I even forgot that I'm supposed to be having a drilling company and I don't. I'm trying to learn this publicist, type of thing, helping another person become what they need to become. So that is important because it helps you refocus and it redirects, your energy, if I can put it that way. And when something good happens, one of my mentors used to say, when something good happens, you need to keep doing the things that actually make you feel good, because then it increases good. Rather than when you do things that depress you and then it increases the depression. You understand? So it's important to extend yourself beyond yourself. Because the more self-centered you become, the more self-conscious you're going to end up becoming, and the more things to be self-conscious about are going to happen. So I've enjoyed the ability to be able to extend myself beyond myself.
Absolutely.
And to be able to hear out other people, to be able to be an ear. Sometimes I don't have the most profound thing to say, but just to be able to listen to somebody else has been, a thank you so much for listening to me. I really needed that. Oh, the chat with you was so amazing. And then I'm sitting there thinking, what did I say? But it's good to go beyond where you are, because it just opens up your world a little bit more, and it just feels a little less stressful.
Lindiwe, thank you so much for sharing your journey and really for sticking around. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for inviting me, and I hope that people gain something, from this conversation.
Lindiwe's journey reminds us that in mining, our greatest asset is not just what we find in the ground, but it's our resilience and adaptability. To our viewers at home facing challenges in the industry now, remember that some of our strongest operations were built during toughest times. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye and God bless.